So to move on to another spindly spinner robot, we have the return of Huge!
Huge.
Nothing here to say about Huge. It's huge.
Nothing else to it. It's got the beautiful eyes. It's got big wheels. Nothing more that needs to be said other than I love this robot. And if you don't, never speak to me ever again.
My parents thought it was daft, but once they saw it fight, they were believers.
Wheels real big, blade real big, bot real big, everything real big.
They're easily going to qualify for the top 32, and I think they could get to the Elite 8. Whether or not they make the Final 4 this year is anyone's guess. Only real complaint about Huge, we never saw them fight Bite Force.
I'm gonna say they're easily a top 8 robot.
Yeah.
And by the way, to take from their favorite profile, their favorite tool is Rory Mangles via telepresence robot.
That is such
Love
a huge thing to say.
So we didn't have a lot to say about Huge, but I think we will have a lot to say about the next robot. Ladies and gentlemen, bow down to the new king of flippers, Hydra.
AKA reason number 600 and I forgot which one, 640. That why Robot Wars needs a new season.
Oh my goodness, Hydra. It doesn't look all that changed. What happened with Hydra last year?
Didn't fare too well against Minotaur.
It effectively got its chains knocked off by Minotaur, and I fear that people are going to be gunning for its sides. But we do know what Hydra does best, and that is flip opponents like it flips burgers on the grill.
Yep. Hydra, new Hydra king of flippers. I do like it looks like the paint is up to Whyachi quality as usual. And I'm going to go a little bit against the grain here by saying that they didn't really need to change much from last season. I think that they ended up getting a bad draw against Minotaur. And to be honest, they were set to be the first flipper to really contend for the top 4 in a very long time. And I think they're going to do much the same.
I think the same here. I think they could go as far as the Elite 8, but it all depends on the luck of the draw and whether or not they can keep those chains secured.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I know they do have the wedgelet set up too, and not just wedge pieces. So I think they have a better shot against like vertical spinners. So I'm just hoping they get a bit more difficult schedule than they did last year. But I think they can do pretty well.
I don't think anybody expected them to do so well, considering that we didn't see too much of their flipper before the show aired. I certainly didn't, but once we saw them just throwing opponents around the arena like they were nothing, I think Greg and Trey are going to say, okay, you've proved yourself the new king of flippers, now you have to defend your crown.
Which, in all honesty, is going to be theirs for a good long time, since their only real rival in the flipper game now is Bronco, and we all know what happened to Bronco.
Indeed. And now we move on to a guy who I think is probably just the king of all Roboteers because he is that awesome. It's the return of Will Bales and Hypershock.
Welcome back. And I'd like to say thanks, Will, for recognizing my Hypershock drag car. And I can't wait to run it some more. Also, that said, now I gotta go get a new body for it to match this one. So, yeah.
I've always loved Hypershock. I've always loved Will Bales. Honestly, the only thing keeping them back again this year is their technical difficulties, because they've had technical issues for the past few years. But when Hypershock works, watch out.
I think this will be their year. As in, I'm seeing top 8 material out of them, and I'd put them on a list of bots that have an outside chance of going to the Final 4. But they're going to need quite a bit of luck, and they're going to need to really take the opportunities that open up. They didn't capitalize on some opportunities last year, and And they had a really horrible year the year before that. And it's going to be, they have a lot of potential. They just got to walk through the open door. That's really it.
If they seize that opportunity, they're easily top 4 contenders. I would say that they could even beat Tombstone if they went up against Tombstone, because we saw how Tombstone fared against Bite Force. And considering just how aggressive a driver Will Bales is, because the one bit from Hypershock I remember from last season was its fight against Valkyrie, where it just box rushed the thing and just didn't stop.
Yeah, that is Will Bales driving at his best. And Will's really good at finding the sweet spot on his opponents. I mean, he came close to beating Bite Force. And then, of course, Bite Force was Bite Force with its Bite Force plot armor. But I do believe to this day that Will had gotten that one hit on Bite Force. It could change the outcome of that entire season right then and there.
I think as long as they've unsuckified the parts of the bot that they've had issues with, I think Hypershock is a pretty decent shot. I'd love to see it fight Tombstone with great speed. I think that would be a really entertaining fight. Probably not as entertaining for them afterwards, regardless of if they win or lose, because I'd imagine win or lose, it might be a costly battle, as a lot of fights with Tombstone tend to be. But yeah, I'm excited to see Will Bales back.
Their biggest concern this year, I would say, is that they're using a new drive system because everyone else is using theirs.
I really hate to say this, but that could be their biggest weak spot for the whole season. I just hope it's one of those things where they nail it right out of the box and it just stays together.
Sometimes all you can do in this situation is pray, as my dad tells me. Up next, we have another returnee after a year off. It is the return of Icewave.
This is definitely one of those surprises that Brandon told me about when he got off the plane. And I gotta say, what a surprise this is.
Do we know if they're going to be competing full-time or if they're just there as a reserve?
Let's see, some people say it's going to be full-time, although my source above me says...
I'm going to bleep that out. But with Icewave, they're always entertaining, and for a bot whom my first impression of was them self-destructing against Major Punishment, if you don't know what I'm talking about, look up that fight, Icewave versus Major Punishment. Icewave has actually been fairly reliable in the BattleBots, and it's done a good job of protecting its engine, save for that fight against Rotator. And I think that if it's fully working, it's definitely a lock for the top 32, but I don't know how far it's going to go beyond that bracket of 32.
Well, I'd say Icewave has had a really, really solid reputation with reliability. So I'm going to say they're going to have a very deep run, provided they have measures in place to keep people from pulling a Rotator on them.
Is it going to have like any of the keep away sticks?
I'm not going to touch that for reasons.
I think it can do decently well. I just think with the current meta of four-wheel drive verts and like really thick wedges, like we saw with Rotator, where Rotator was able to deflect Icewave's blows enough to actually stop it from spinning. I mean, I know that they got like a new engine for their weapons, so they just got to be careful, and obviously it's definitely going to come down to the luck of the draw.
Yeah, that's all that really needs to be said about Icewave. I really hope that they do well this time around, because I've always had a soft spot for Icewave. You have to admire a robot that even in 2020 is still using an internal combustion engine, when most robots are now electrical powered. So, moving on to another new team for this year, a bot that was built in a garage in about a month. It's Jackpot. Unlucky for some.
That's an aesthetic I was not ready for. Let's call it garage chic, rat rod, robot chic. I don't know. It's unique. It's out there. I don't know if it's going to be any good. I can't tell. It could surprise people. It could be a complete dud, or it can end up splattered against the wall. I don't know.
I like that phrase, garage chic. Yeah, I love the dual spinning blades. Originally, it was supposed to be called Sabertooth, but apparently they got in trouble with old Gabriel Stroud, so Because they're based out of Las Vegas, they went with a gambling aesthetic, and that's how we got the name Jackpot. And it looks good, and it's not bad for a first attempt, but given that it was built in effectively a month, they're definitely going to be going through some growing pains for a first-year team.
I was going to say, should have called it Gambler 500. Would have really fit the garage chic.
Sometimes the simple names work best, and Jackpot is one of those names.
Yeah, I really don't think you could have chosen a better name for a bot with a team based out of Las Vegas.
What were they supposed to use? Chippendale?
Oh, man.
You know, hopefully once international travel opens up again, I hope they invite John Denny and John Denny Jr. for their team so that we can have the full ensemble of Roboteers who built bots based off of gambling.
Dude, that would be so cool.
Indeed. And if they have John Denny Jr. as their driver, they're set for the whole competition, because John Denny Jr. is a maniac behind the controls.
Oh yeah, definitely. He's a great driver.
Of course you know, you've seen him live. But Jackpot definitely looks great. I love the grungy yet sleek build to it. But whether or not it does well, it looks better than some of the other first-time entries we've seen on this list. But we'll find out once the episode starts airing whether it's truly up to snuff. But for a first-time entry, I love this machine.
Mm-hmm. It's got a very unique look to it, very unique design, and it's a true wild card. You don't really know what it's going to be capable of until it fires up in the box.
One little thing we've talked about team photos, I love how they have a card on the side of the bodywork. I was really hoping it was a case where they stuck a playing card in the drive shaft to make it sound more deadly.
Oh yeah, that'd be funny.
Oh yeah, that'd be so funny and cool. Mostly cool.
Speaking of cool machines, and one that I think is a serious contender this year, we have Kraken.
Kraken. Awesome group of people and a very fun bot to see in person. They seem to be getting the pincer mechanism better with every iteration of the robot. And I think they have an outside chance at being quite a surprise for this season.
I think that this is the year that Matt Spurk and Kraken finally come out of the woodwork and say, my bot is not just a novelty with a unique crushing mechanism, it is a legitimate contender for the giant nut, and I don't want to say it deserves praise, but, you know, you should start taking us a lot more seriously. I think this is the year he's perfected that crushing mechanism, because I've talked with Matt Spurk about this on the Hardcore podcast. The Crusher is pneumatically driven by an air bladder.
Wow. It was a weird idea when it first was introduced, because I do remember a lot of people giving them flack for it, but I do love how they've been able to stick with that for so long and really refine it.
Plus, it's also got the great paint job to match it. Last year, we saw a black Kraken. This year, it's this chartreuse chrome with a little black in it on the front of the nose, and oh, it looks beautiful.
I wish I knew who did their paint so I could give them a shout out on this show.
Yeah, I think it's got a really good shot. It's definitely had its ups and downs, but I think it hasn't had like the most wins, but the 2 wins that it's had, like against Ribbot and Red Devil, were very impressive. So it looks like a goofy bot, but it's definitely shown that it can really hang with the big boys.
I would say it's become the Dietor of BattleBots. A bot that is sort of meant to be comedic, but don't think it's a joke bot.
The lethal joke character.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what they said on
put.
TV tropes about like Dietor or whatever, but I thought that was a nice saying.
To make a video game reference, Kraken is the Yoshimitsu of BattleBots. The comedy relief character who turns out to be the best fighter in the game. And speaking of the best fighters, we now move on to my mom's favorite robot, Lockjaw.
I think Lockjaw is always usually does well, but obviously it just needs to work on not smoking and getting stuck in the kill saws. But other than that, it's a good bot.
I was going to call it the Jeff Gordon of BattleBots. It's going to be always in there, always. Even if it doesn't win, it's going to go down swinging, and you can never Right? It's kind of, you can really never rule out a deep run in the tournament because it's got a really good package. Got good driving, a decent weapon, reliability. It's iffy, but it tends to lean on the good side more often than not. It's built very well. It's always a contender. It just, you can never really truly predict how deep it's going to go each season.
I'm calling it now. I think Lockjaw wins it all this season. But it all depends as to whether or not it can get its reliability issues sorted out. But whether or not it wins or loses, there is one fact that we must all live with. You cannot outdrive Don Hudson.
Yeah. I've always been impressed. There are a lot of times when he also like drifts, and like I think one of my favorite fights of his was his against Black Dragon in the round of 16. I thought that was some really impressive driving.
Great use of the forks too.
I'm going back and forth between Hydra and Lockjaw getting fit this year. Although, if there was like a LCQ type spot in the Final Four where you're getting 3 S-class robots in one robot that really showed up, that sort of had a late bloomer season, I guess you could say. Lockjaw, I'd say, is a very good lot for that spot. It could be a Final Four, but I'm not going to lose money over it. That's what I'm going to say.
My biggest hope with Lockjaw, aside from it winning the nut, because that'd be great to see Don win another nut, is for it to get a toy deal. Like, all of Don's bots have been begging to get a toy deal, and like it's the only one that hasn't gotten one yet, so I hope we get some.
Forgot to complain about that this year. Dang it.
Did I tell you that when I was in Boy Scouts, we actually had like BattleBots night, and I got to drive the RC Dissector?
That's awesome. That is a fun robot to drive.
Yeah, I was awful at it.
One. Oh, wow. Good thing they take a beating for the most part. I used to drive Brandon's around a lot. It was fun to just drift it around and bounce it off of stuff. I did that. It took a beating for a good long time.
Whew, looking over all of these robots is hard work, and so I figured the three of us are going to take a little break and we'll be back soon. And we're back! And we start off with the robot that I am most excited about to see this season, and I don't care if this thing wins any fights or not. All I care about is the captain. I am talking about the new and improved Mad Catter.
All right. Like we got Mad Catter and a hat, like 2 actual Mad Catters this season.
Well, it has 2 weapon configurations. It has its lifter-spinner combination, although with the way the spinner's configured, it looks more like it could pin its opponent as well. And it also has the Kenta Kobashi-approved Burning Hammer.
Oh, I forgot they put the 2 modules in the frame this time. I had to zoom in on that one.
Yep. Somewhere Al Kindle is ready to sue this team for gimmick infringement.
I think he's got a good shot. Well, I'm really excited. I'm always excited to see Martin Mason. I love his persona that he puts on, whether it's in BattleBots or the second season of King of Bots. So it's definitely going to be fun. I think they have a better chance because the way their frame's built, they don't have to worry about it separating.
To repeat myself, I don't care if this thing wins or loses. I just want more Martin Mason on my television. Anybody that talks like a wrestler from 80s WWF or NWA is A-OK in my book.
80s wrestler persona plus trippy paint equals good time.
I've called Martin Mason the big boss man of BattleBots because, well, he looks like the big boss man.
Is the big boss man of BattleBots. He is a big boss man.
And if he goes full heel this season, we'll have Big Boss Man behaving badly.
That was like poetry.
That's a alliteration record or something.
It's a reference to another podcast that I listen to. I think Mad Catter will have a shot due to the weakened field, but we don't know where the chips are gonna fall with them. But I will be rooting for them because I love me some Martin Mason, and when you give him a microphone, you got money.
I think they will squeeze at least one win out. It's going to be a weird one, though. That's just it. It's going to be weird.
I think they could do it. And now, let's move on to another new team for this year. And it's a bot that I saw a lot of in my Facebook feed, Malice.
Okay, here you go. Big story time. What if I told you that Malice was responsible for my part of the Big Dills team lineup?
No!
How?
Ooh, you're in for a big story. I wish I could get Brandon on here to tell the full story of this, but here it goes. Essentially, at a league here in Maryland called Macro, which is all 3D printed robots, Brandon fought Mini Malice, which, by the way, was the show. Not sure if it's going to be on TV or not, but it's there. And he ended up wiping the floor with Mini Malice. And the Malice team were so impressed that they are what got Brandon onto the big deal.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Yep. And right after this was announced, Brandon became the two-time and defending champion of Macro.
Excellent. Good job on your brother, mate.
I'll let him know you said that.
If you may pardon the terrible pun, well, it seems this relationship certainly got him in a real pickle.
Oh, God.
He's going to hear that one.
Hey, I'm old enough to be a dad, so I can make dad jokes.
Fair enough.
All right.
We've spent more time talking about the story than about Malice. But I have a question. How is that thing a horizontal drum spinner?
Well, you see, that blade is super chonky. And if you look on the Mad Catter on the left, you will see a bit of a similarity. And what they essentially did was take a weapon meant for vertical use and flip it on its side. And it's actually a lot more effective than it sounds, believe it or not.
Well, I'll believe it when I see it. I think they'll win at least one fight, but I don't know. Those wheels, they look incredibly vulnerable, and I feel that with that weapon and that force, it looks like it could be a glass cannon.
Well, the mini one was a glass
Yeah,
cannon.
Odium and Animus were insane. I remember seeing them at Motorama, and they just like they're all over the place. So this will be a really fun bot to watch, even if it's only going to like explode itself, which hopefully it doesn't. I want to see it explode some other bots.
I've talked
I
about
actually think the opposite's going to happen. They're gonna get, I think, a couple wins. Bubble contention, sure, definitely a couple.
Hey, one of my earliest memories of robot combat on YouTube was watching Icewave explode.
Oh yeah, that was beautiful.
So hey, they may entertain us in more ways than one this season. And now we move on to a robot that is always entertaining. A robot that my family has given several nicknames. My mom has called it the Pipe Bomb and the Tallywhacker. My dad calls it the Spank Machine. I call it the Paddle Wheel, but we all know and love it as Mammoth.
Woo! Maryland team! And another team who I've met in person. We went to a couple of their parties last year. Thanks, Ricky, for holding those. Those were awesome, and I wish we could do them again one day. Yeah, I like this year's Mammoth because if you've been following them online, they definitely have made some improvements, as I gotta say.
Well, their lifter is now powered by an E-Tech, so there's some force behind that thing. They seem to have reinforced what little frame it has along with better protection for the electronics. Once again, I don't expect Mammoth to do too much this year except entertain the hell out of us. They're a team that embodies one of my favorite quotes from Robot Combat, and that is from the legendary Kim Davies from Panic Attack, who said in Robot Wars Extreme, "We're here to entertain, and that's what we're hoping to do." And really, isn't that what Robot Combat is all about?
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's just a marvel to look at. Like, I had the opportunity to see it in person at Motorama earlier this year, and it was just, you can't really fathom just how big it is on TV. Just seeing it in person is just insane.
Got a follow up to that. Have you seen Mammoth actually fight before, Nate?
Before BattleBots, I mean, I think I might have seen the fights from the Robot Ruckus on YouTube, but
Same.
I did see when Ricky made like the smaller versions of it to like test it, and I didn't really think he'd try out for BattleBots, but I'm really glad he did because he did a really good job with it.
I've actually seen the Mammoth go full tilt before, both at one of Ricky's awesome parties and down in Orlando. And Mammoth fighting in person is something that everyone should experience at least once in their lives.
Were it not for Corona-chan, I would have gone.
True. I think their record is going to be more or less the same. I want them to do slightly better, though. But it wouldn't surprise me if their record ends up being the same as last year. In fact, I'd be really impressed, actually.
Well, with how chaotic 2020 has been, anything can happen by this point. For moving on to the craziness of Mammoth to a bot that was made with precision engineer, we have P1. And I just want to put my foot down. Kenny, what the hell were you thinking when you called this thing's weapon a reverse flipper? It's a front-hinged flipper! Front-hinged flipper, damn it!
P1 is one of those spots that, like, I really want to see it do well. It's got a really nice design. We don't really typically see front hinge flippers anymore. Like, from what I've seen from the few fights it had, it was very fast. So hopefully they're able to squeeze out a few wins this year.
It's a fast robot. A fast robot, but it all depends on reliability. If they can sort those out, I think they will do better this year, especially with there being so many lifters in the field.
The success this year all depends on whether or not their robot agrees with the floor, because that was their big undoing last year. Their robot was a bit too low to the ground, and they struggled with their drivetrain on what is effectively a very uneven battle box.
Perfectly well put.
Yeah.
And as Jeremy Clarkson says, if a car like that can't pass the sleeping policeman test, then it's not road legal.
That is perfect. I can't believe I waited this long for a Jeremy Clarkson shout out.
My family loves Jeremy Clarkson, myself included.
He's very popular down here.
I wouldn't expect anything less, but P1, I think they're going to have a much better season this time around. Back to the newcomers this time around, we have a robot with a Team Fortress 2 theme, Pain Train.
And the gnarliest grill in the field to boot.
I just love how grungy that disc looks.
It's garage chic mixed with the kind of nuttery you only see in a 90s Hot Wheels.
It very much has that built in a New York City garage look to it.
Yeah.
My only real problem that I have with it is that the weapon is a bit too far in, and it doesn't have that much reach. So it's not going to be truly effective unless it gets in and underneath its opponents.
And obviously, because it says that it was built within a month of filming, so hopefully the fact that it was built so close to filming doesn't affect it too much. So I hope it does well. I know Evan's bot Shredit Bro has done really well at like Norwalk, and I know it did pretty well at Motorama as well. So hopefully his small bot skills translate into big bot skills as well.
I think they're going to be doing a little bit of compensating for, as Nate pointed out, the weapon being so recessed is going to limit how they can attack their opponents. So it's going to be a bit of an uphill battle for them, at least at first. But it looks pretty good for a bot built in a month, so I just hope they don't get blown to pieces.
Also, since we're reading off their team pages, I have to love what they put down for their favorite tool, the hammer. It's a tool used to destroy and to build.
Now that's a Jeremy Clarkson joke waiting to happen.
The way it's written is more Mitch Hedberg. My favorite tool is a hammer because you can destroy shit with it and then you can build it back up again.
That's fantastic.
Another new team this year, but I should use the word new in quotes, is Perfect Phoenix, and boy does this machine have its lineage. Other Nate, you want to tell the good people where it came from?
So it was originally one of Paul Ventimiglia's bots called Brutality, and then it was bought by Tyler's mom and given to Ray Billings, who basically gave it new life, and it's now a new entry in BattleBots. So even though Paul isn't here, one of his former bots is here, so he's sort of there in spirit.
Damn it, Nate, you took away what I was gonna say.
Sorry? What more is there to say? I mean, there's obviously more to say, but you know what I mean. Damn it.
You have a machine built by Paul Ventimiglia, retooled by Ray Billings, driven by the Doom Kid. If that
America's greatest robot prodigy.
If that isn't the most dangerous combination, I do not know what will be. I think Perfect Phoenix could make the top 32 with that combination alone, because if Tyler can adjust to driving a heavyweight, he's a lock.
It'll do exactly what Tyler's been doing his whole career, and shocking the holy loving hell out of everybody. That is my prediction, plain and simple. Shock and awe.
Don't laugh at the fact that it's captained by two kids. This thing can really mess you up. My biggest worry, though, if things go awry, that it goes out like Biohazard.
I didn't need to be reminded of that, but now that's gonna be all I'm gonna be thinking about on that Thursday. Thanks.
Yeah, I think it'll do decently well. Obviously, because like the meta is like vertical spinners with forks. So as soon as it comes up against one of those, I don't think it's gonna fare very well. I mean, I hope I'm proven wrong, but I think it could make the top 32. But yeah, it's those vertical spinners I worry about.
Same here. Speaking of vertical spinners, that brings us to Rampage. I don't really have anything to say about this other than it's chocolate-flavored bite force.
I love that. That should be their like team. Well, no, it shouldn't be their team motto, but I think chocolate-covered bite force is a good way to call it. But yeah, it looks like it says that they competed for 5 years. I'm not familiar with the team, but I don't know how it's going to do. I'm going to be honest, like maybe 1 and 3. Looks like all the weight is at the front, so it looks like it's going to drive kind of weird, to be honest, because it's 2 wheels, but I could be wrong. I don't know.
From what I have been told about Rampage, this thing is a brick. You see that side paneling? That thing looks like it could take some hits.
Chocolate-covered garage chic bite force with extra front overhang for good measure. Looks like it could take a couple hits or two, like all things considered. I do not have high hopes for drivability and maneuverability. That's just me.
Yeah, you need 4 wheels for this kind of spinner, and having 2 at the rear, it's gonna have steering issues. But I at least give the Knox family credit for at least trying something, and as I've been saying through all this, I want to see him again.
For sure.
Absolutely.
And now we come to a returning team and a robot that last year I thought was a joke entry, but one that I was pleasantly surprised by. It's Ribbot. Rest in peace, Foam.
They were gonna go full joke until they ran afoul of standards and practices, from what I remembered.
What?
But real talk though, they were supposed to put like fake blood in there or something, or like fake blood paint. That
What?
when they get turned up, it would look red. It's apparently canon according to Brandon. But yeah, and then standards and practices were like, no, you're not doing that. Instead, we got foam carnage instead.
What a disgusting yet awesome joke.
Yes, exactly. I wish they'd done it.
Hey kids, you ever dissected a frog before? Well, now you can see one dissected live on BattleBots. Oh, the laughs we would have had.
That's exactly what they were going for. Oh, Nate, take it away, please.
No, I'm really excited to see it. It's got the modular design, which is always fun. Obviously, they looked like a joke bot, but they did pretty well last year, and I don't know. I really want to see them make the top 32. They're a really fun bot, really fun team.
Their college's mascot is a goat, so they decided to build a frog.
They're going to do better than last year. They're going... Nope, not going to make a joke about the frog gore. They're going to go into the top 32, and, well, frankly, after that, it's anybody's guess.
I think Ribbot is in good hands. This team competes at the Norwalk Havoc events, which I have been to several, and there are a lot of extremely lethal robots that fight in that box at that event, and Ribbot is definitely one that you should always keep an eye on.
Yep, that's pretty much been their MO since they started.
Moving on to a robot that I'm honestly shocked did as well as it did last year. In fact, you could say that it overcame the odds and expectations, and that is Rotator.
Is it weird to say that everything you just said justifies that pose?
Oh, definitely. Although, can we talk about how much it sucks to beat Tombstone but not make the top 16? Like, ouch.
Irony is, I think most of that was their fault.
I think because they went with the double disc setup that they were having trouble with, and they were fighting Blacksmith, which is an absolute, tank of a robot. So I don't know how much more they could have done, except maybe, gone with the single blade.
That was something I think they should have done as well.
Well, do they have the double disc configuration this year, or no?
I have no idea. They might have said it on their Facebook, though.
I have no idea.
Regardless of whether they have it or not, Rotator does have one thing that it does well. Rotator is a tank. Rotator is a spinner that can not only dish out hits, but can take them too. And I think it could be a dark horse. Dare I say, I think this thing makes the top 8 this year.
I was just about to say that. They're going to the top 8 because they're really good at strategy. They got the reliability down pat. They don't really need luck anymore to really go anywhere. Although they did have a tendency to blow fights last year. But, look all lifters we've gone through. Look at all the bots we point out that are definitely vulnerable to a bot like Rotator. I think they're going to do really well this year. Top 8. I think whoever may beat them will go on to win the championship.
Considering how hard Rotator had to fight with a broken chassis last year, and going in this year knowing that it hasn't had those issues, Rotator is ready to make some noise, and I think they could cause some serious upsets. One of my favorite fights of last year that nobody really talks about was Rotator versus Death Roll, simply because Rotator just got tossed about, yet it never ever broke down in that single fight. It held on until the end, and you have to respect that from a robot that takes that much punishment.
Oh, absolutely.
And so we move on from a tank to... I don't know what this is.
It's art. It's art.
I was going to say
it's the best bot here,
Thomas the
honestly.
Tank Engine bot? I don't know. The Thomas the Tank Engine bot? I don't know. Kind of looks like it, though.
I mean, it does look like it's going to get its own, children's television series of some sort.
Shoot, I was just thinking that. That would be really awesome.
Like Wally's cousin or something. But yeah, I love this spot. And if you don't love it, then I don't know what's wrong with you.
Yeah, we're talking about Rusty. This thing. It is going to be torn to pieces. It is not going to win any fights. And I love this thing.
I am actually expecting it to win at least one fight against some opponent that just underestimates it and gets, loses in the most, ridiculous way possible. Maybe it tears off the arm and gets high-centered on it, and then, it'll be the greatest underdog story of all time. I want this to win a fight. If it doesn't win a fight, I will consider every hour of BattleBots Season 5, wasted. I'm hyping it up way too much. It'll be my downfall, but I'm sorry. I want this thing to do well.
Oh my god, this thing. It's just, you have to admire all the effort that David Eaton put into this thing. Like, he just turns up with this thing that he looks like he built in a scrapyard with that kitchen-made mixing bowl on its head.
I was gonna say that pretty much your record prediction is spot on. I don't see this thing winning a fight, but it's gonna lose like a champ, if that makes any remote sense.
It does.
Yeah, it's going to lose like a champ. We're going to love it. And because I've already laughed enough tonight, my spleen's going to be hurting when it happens.
You poor thing.
Yeah, Rusty. I think it says a lot about this robot when several other teams on this website have it listed as their favorite robot.
Oh, absolutely.
There's just so much charm in how it was built. Like, you don't see builds like this anymore.
I was gonna say, even if it does lose, can we preserve it and just use it as a TV show prop?
Or just put it in a museum, honestly, an art museum.
Shoot, you're right. Fly it down here to Baltimore and we'll put it in the American, Visionary Art Museum or whatever.
No, put it next to the Mona Lisa. No spot is worthy. There's no other spot worthy. It has to go there.
That's awesome.
If there's any art museums in Antioch, Illinois, please take this thing and put it on a nice pedestal. I mean, if something can get in an art museum, then so can this bot.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But that does it for Rusty, the little diesel robot, sponsored by Hope Prayers and whatever is available. Next, we move on to one of my picks for the Giant Nut this year, and a bot that has become one of my absolute favorites. It's the return of the almighty Jameson Go and Sawblaze.
Sawblaze looking a little bit less like Gravedigger this season. Yeah, I don't know where to put them, because on one hand, you do make a good case for them making at least the Final Four. But on the other hand, there's just gonna be something. There's gonna be something that's going to jump up and derail everything. I don't know what it is or when it's gonna come up, but it happens. It happened last year, happened the year before that. I need to see something extra.
I think they've got a really good shot. Like last year, they had 2 losses, but the 2 losses were to the runner-up and another top 4 bot that lost to the champ. So I'm thinking this is top 4 material. And I know Jameson won Motorama this year with Megatron. He definitely learned a lot from his win this year, so I think he might be able to apply some of those things for the 30-pounder and bring it over to the heavyweight.
True. Technology transfer definitely will add something this year. But I think they are going to need a little bit of luck.
I think they've ironed out all the gremlins this year that they're going to make a deep run. And it's mostly because JMO does not mess around as a driver. As we saw in his fight with Ribbot last year and its fight against Son of Whyachi, when Jameson Go has you, he is not letting go.
He's got me thinking of a Ribbot and Sawblaze matchup. I really, really want to see happen now.
That happened last year. Ribbot got absolutely
I want to see
demolished.
it again. I loved it. I want to see it again.
Well, who knows? Maybe we'll have some basement tapes that will feature MIT versus WPI.
Yeah, brother.
And so we move on from high-tech to a bot that was built in a scrapyard, featuring one of my favorite Roboteers of all time, a man who I have had the joy of talking with on multiple occasions, and by golly, I want to see what he does next. It's Ed Robinson and Sharko.
And for president. Oh, wait a minute, we're not doing that anymore. Oops.
It's such a
Sorry,
it's such a beautiful bot. I think I'm fully expecting it to get drawn against Rusty. Honestly, they're two of the most beautiful bots here, and you can really see the homemade, made in a garage type of bot that it is. So I'm really excited to see it.
You can't see me doing this from behind the camera, or at least unless you have yours turned on, but I am squeeing with happiness over Sharko and Rusty fighting each other.
With everything that Ed has gone through this year, I'm sure going to the filming and finally getting to show Sharko in front of a broad audience on television, it must have been cathartic for him.
Oh, absolutely. Wasn't it partially crowdfunded?
It was.
Oh, nice.
Someone's going to confirm in the comments below.
If you know if it's crowdfunded, drop a comment, please, because I actually don't know that either.
For a bot that is effectively an art bot, Sharko, in every appearance, has always done surprisingly well. And I think even if it doesn't make the top 32, Ed's going to put up a fight in every single battle he fights. And good on him for that. Ed, we love you, and we await what you do next.
I loved his tenacity when he fought, what was it, Warhead?
Yeah, Warhead.
Yeah, I love that tenacity. And I want to see more of it this year.
Hashtag pray for Ed. And from the deep depths of the ocean onto the football pitch, we now have perhaps the most aesthetically pleasing robot in the battlefield, Shatter.
One of the loudest spots in Robot Ruckus. Also, I may have tried getting something I own painted like Shatter. It's gorgeous this year.
Oh, absolutely. I'm really excited I'm excited to see every bot, but Shatter is such a beautiful bot. I love watching it drift around the arena. Win or lose, it's always a fun bot to watch.
If they can get their hammer working fully this year, this is top 16 material. They're perhaps the best hammer bot in the entire field. And that armor, oh my god, it looks like a stained glass window, and I love it. Absolutely love it. It looks like it's cel-shaded on the website picture.
I was going to say, I think they got the hammer sorted for this year. I'm willing to bet money that they have the thing sorted this year. They're my favorite hammer bot in BattleBots. They're going to have a good year. Top 32, top 16, and they're going to get a top 8 spot. I hope they get a top 8 spot because they deserved it last year. And they're going to have a great time this year. And I just want to see my big old loud slammy drifty boy do well.
With those Mecanum wheels, anything is possible. And I also have to give them props for their Bots FC ascots.
Which I gotta say are just class-tacular.
Indeed, and I don't even like soccer. I'm sorry to all our British fans out there, but I've tried watching football soccer, and it just bores me. If you want to see the ideal version of soccer, just watch hockey instead.
You may or may not have completely alienated your entire British audience, so I'm really sorry to hear about that.
Well, I'll tell you,
sweat beat intensifies.
Well, I'll tell you one robot that's not alienating anybody. It is the returning Scorpios. Returning under new management this year, Zach Lytle has the controls full-time. I really hope that Scorpio takes the next step this year, because in all of their fights, they have always looked good, but something always goes wrong that prevents them from getting into the playoffs.
That's pretty much been the story of their career.
Always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
Yeah, I mean, on 2 seasons in a row, they were on the verge of making the top 16, but they just didn't make it. So hopefully this is their year. I think they've got a good shot.
I do too. It all depends on who they face and whether or not the driving is up to snuff. Because they were shockingly upset by Uppercut last year, and when that happened, I just went, oh my god, Scorpios, man. Didn't expect that to happen. But Scorpios, I think with this field they might have a shot, but we'll see. Something always goes wrong for this team, and I hope that is not the case this year.
I'm going to bring back our old friend, the Opportunity Door. which is open, but yet you gotta walk through it.
I can only show you the door, Scorpios. It is up to you to drive through it.
Perfect.
Up next, the robot with the best paint job in the entire show. It is the newcomer, Slapbox.
AKA our pit neighbors at Robot Ruckus Orlando. And also clearly going for the 90s children's play area at the mall that is probably still open today. Look. It's a bot that I've been waiting to see on BattleBots ever since we met the team. Wonderful people. They were a blast to pit next to last year. And yeah, it's definitely a throwback in more ways than one.
Much like the Big Dill, I get Panic Attack vibes from this. And my god, I just love this paint scheme. Like, the first grade art project vibe from it, I get with that paint job. It looks like it was sponsored by DZ, Discovery Zone.
I was going to say, well, I was going to say either that or a local daycare, because I've got, throwback vibes. Them daycare days vibes, man.
I'm really excited to see them perform. My dad and I are friends with the team. We've been pitted next to each other a few times, and we've seen them at a lot of NERC events. And I know they did really well with a similar bot in the sportsman class at Motorama and NERC Franklin Institute. So I think these guys have a good shot at doing well. I'm obviously just worried about how they're going to handle some of the really tough spinners out there.
You mentioned that, Nate, because I'm looking at the side plates. I like the bit of hollow space they have in those side plates. They can withstand a lot more hits as opposed to if they were just solid. And I think just that minute detail may give them some extra durability, but we'll see. I miss Stinger, aka Sewer Snake from the previous seasons, and I'm hoping that Slapbox can sort of fill that void, if it does well.
You know, I hadn't considered that until you brought that up. That is a good observation.
But that said, given how many control bots we have in this field, it's gonna have some tough competition. Like our next robot. Oh boy. It's Slammo!
Slammo! By the way, there is for once no lawnmower outside to either punctuate the situation or ruin it depending on your perspective.
Craig Danby. I just have one request. Craig, break the memes this year. You have been a punchline in the robot combat community for far too long. We know what you can do engineering-wise, but every time you've been on television, you've always been dealt a bad hand. I want you to prove to the robot combat world that you are no laughing matter. I want you to go out there and get him. I want Slammo to do well, because damn it, I want Craig to win for a change.
It did reasonably well at Robot Rockets from what I remember, and it certainly doesn't look like it was made too compact in comparison to some of Craig's other bots. So I'm hoping he's able to get a few wins and, sort of just do really well.
I'm hoping that this will be the Danby bot that finally breaks through, doesn't pull a Quinn Half and just cause problems, or get a bad draw and go up against something that'll blow it to pieces. I want it to actually pull a Mammoth from last year, and that is, I want to see this thing run full tilt, grab a bot, and just plunk it behind the screws. Just a little dab over the screws. That's what I want to see.
The team page says that Slammo is the suplex machine, and I can't wait for you to be sued by Taz.
I was going to say, cue the wrestling music, of which there is none.
Yeah, Taz does not take kindly to gimmick infringement.
I do love the bio. Favorite tool, Randy. Favorite robot, Paul Ventimiglia.
Craig Danby, man.
I really want Craig to go full heel this season like he did in Robot Wars.
Please, robot gods, allow this.
Please, robot gods, allow Craig to show what he's made of. And with that, let's do the chant. Good luck, Craig. And that is all we have to say about that. Now we move on to another newcomer and a bot that I have seen fight live, in the Beatles anyway. It is SMEE. Oh, I can't wait for Farouk to struggle to say this thing.
Struggle? You mean SMEE?
No, you don't need to worry about Farouk. It's Chris and Kenny and Jenny I'm a bit worried about.
You're a SMEE.
As we all know, Chris can't sing. I can't wait for this.
I've seen the Beetleweight version of SMEE fight, and let me tell you something. Its design is unorthodox, but it is incredibly effective. Brandon, hardcore kid, he struggles against this thing. The only way he beat it was that he got a lucky hit in and he flipped it upside down. Guess what problem they solved last year? In the Beatles, anyway. And they also have an attachment to deal with other spinners as well, because SMEE, the way it gets you is that it traps and it smothers your bot. And it works on the Beetleweights. On the heavies, this thing's gonna do a Kit Kat bar.
Dang it, why'd you have to beat me to our most cleverest reference plug of the night?
Honestly, what I'm most excited about for SMEE is seeing Chris and Kenny's reaction when it first fights, because I remember in season 3 when Huge first fought, Chris and Kenny were in absolute awe, and it's something that like my dad and I still talk about. So like just seeing it in the arena for the first time is just honestly just going to blow everyone's mind, and that's no matter how it does, that's what I'm really excited about.
I question the durability because that front wedge is articulated this time around, so it can effectively strangle its foes like an actual snake, hence why their favorite robot is Snake. Not Solid Snake, it Mark Satrakian's Snake. Except this one is a lot more practical. It does have undercutters on the side, but those are more of a just-for-show weapon, in my humble opinion.
For sure, for sure. I'm not gonna lie though, memes and singing and bad singing aside, I actually don't expect a whole lot out of this robot, but it'll put on a show. We'll get to see it at least circle around something at least once.
It's the Zack Sabre Jr. of robot combat this year. It's just going to completely strangle you, put you in holds, and make you submit. Unfortunately, there is no tapping out in BattleBots, so at the very least, it'll probably take some bots the distance, but building up scales of smaller weight classes either goes really well or not so much, but I wish Joseph all the best. I really admire SMEE for its uniqueness, although, as he told me at Norwalk Havoc, he has never seen Red Dwarf, so the name of the robot is not a Red Dwarf reference.
Is it a Disney reference of all things?
I did not ask him that. I'm sure somebody will point it out, but I don't know. And after 3 newcomers, we move on to the returning Son of Whyachi. I thought this thing was not coming back this year.
Oh, I knew it was coming back. It's Sal.
I don't remember. I think
Didn't
didn't they just like hold in
first,
last minute or something? I guess.
I
mean, it's not like they had another heavyweight ready to go. It's just COVID's happening. Can you bring back Son of Whyachi? Yeah, sure. All right, here's Son of Whyachi.
Paint job looks last minute, I'll say.
Yeah, I don't really think we have much to say about this other than it's Son of Whyachi. It will do Son of Whyachi things.
Sal's gonna do Sal things this year. Except I think it will succeed in doing more Sal things than years past. That is due to the weakened field, of course. In fact, I had Sal either going to the top 8 or the top 4 for this year, because all you need to do is just quite literally carve carve a path for themselves, they'll be golden. However, I do hope they don't have to carve through their teammates to get there. You know what I'm saying?
I never like it whenever they pit the Whyachi team members against each other. I feel that it's unfair to them.
Yep.
Make like the Offspring and keep them separated.
Perfect.
I'm expecting it to have a few wins, but then ultimately lose to like a spinner killer like previous years. But other than that, I think it's going to do all right.
I think Team Whyachi has sort of moved beyond Sao, which is pretty much why they brought Fusion. It's sort of an evolution of Son of Whyachi, but I feel they just brought in Sao to fill up a space.
No, I think that's reasonable.
Yeah. Reasonable, at least given the optics of said robot.
We'll see, but as I said, I think if Whyachi has at least one more good run, it can retire peacefully. And now, let's move on to another control bot in the field, and one that is fighting for a good cause, Scorponok.
Oh yeah, it looks really cool. I don't know, it's just like a really cool scorpion-like design. I love just like the silliness of it being a spork. I'm really excited to see this one.
I just like the fact that it's named after a really cool G1 Transformer, Scorponok.
Oh yeah, it's a really good reference.
Oh, I actually didn't know that. That is news to me.
Yeah, Scorponok, for those out there who know nothing about Transformers, Scorponok was a late G1 Transformer. It was massive, it could turn into a base, and, as its name implies, a scorpion. Also, it was a headmaster, so it was two separate units, and its headmaster, Black Zarek, was actually a villain in Japanese G1. That's me being a Transformers nerd.
I need to ask my personal Transformers nerd, my buddy James, about that.
On an aesthetic level, the more I look at this thing, the aesthetics make me think that it's a Power Wheels vehicle.
I actually,
I
shoot, I
kind
didn't
of see
think about
that.
that. Now I can't unsee it. Thanks.
It has that big little Tykes car energy to it.
Big little Tykes car energy.
Yeah, and I don't mean that as an insult. It's just, the more I look at the shape, the more it reminds me of it. I love the configuration it has with its wheels, though. Like, 4 wheels at the back. Okay, double layer wheels, that's interesting. But let's put a little space between them, so you knock one off, you still got 2 more. And the rest of them are hidden within the back of the robot, so for a newcomer, this is surprisingly well built. And depending on how the luck of the draw goes for Scorponok, they could potentially be top 32 material.
Yeah, well, just a bit of a correction. It's actually the team captain Lilith has been doing it for quite a while. This is just her first entry into BattleBots.
Well, when we say newcomer, we mean new to the show.
Right.
You know what else the design actually kind of reminds me of now with the wheels? It reminds me of one of those robots in Robot Arena 2 that becomes super hard to beat, and you have to hit it a bunch of times in a very specific spot to beat it. I'm hoping they can carry that energy into the tournament.
And speaking of robots that I hope carry some energy into the tournament, we go to the returning Subzero, a team that was dealt an awful hand last season.
It was dealt the worst hand, I'd say.
Yeah, having your first fight against Cobalt and then just getting absolutely wrecked near beyond repair. What an awful way to start the season.
Yeah, that's dirty. They definitely got done dirty last year.
And it's sad because it looks like the Subzero team have finally figured out their design.
Yeah, this Subzero team, they are not hashing around. This could be a bot that, honestly, I wish could have challenged Bronco last year, just as Hydra got a shot at Bronco, because it got good maneuverability. They got a lot of power in that flipper, and they actually can put matches together.
We saw what they could do last year against P1 when they chucked it out of the arena. If they had not been pitted against Cobalt at the last minute, I think Subzero could have snuck into the top 16.
You got it.
I really think that this is the year Subzero finally breaks out of being an undercard bot and makes some noise. They've got all the tools they need to succeed. A powerful weapon, good maneuverability, and a great driver in their new team captain, Logan Davis. I think this will be the year Subzero proves themselves as a contender. Before you guys give your thoughts, I just want to say this team has excellent taste in robots. Because their favorite robot they have listed is the Goof Custom from Gundam, the 8th MS team. And I give them all the props in the world for a very, very deep cut from the world of mecha anime. Like, they could have gone with the Wing Gundam, or the Seed Astray, or the Gundam Barbados, but they not only went with a UC mecha, but a UC mech that not many people know about. And I love that. And if you watched the 8th MS team, the Goof Custom is a beast.
Holy deep cut / show tie-in, Batman.
I really want to see it do well. I mean, it had a rough season, but at least got to get one nice KO of P1 by throwing it out of the arena, so I thought that was great.
And so we move for a robot that I have big plans for to a robot that you could say has small ambitions. It's Tantrum. Can I just say, I've always enjoyed the aesthetic of Tantrum, the world's angriest robot. It looks like they have finally perfected their design this year. Because last year, its punching spinner was a good idea in concept, but I feel was kind of lacking in the execution because of its reach. This year, though, it looks like they finally figured out how to make it work by angling it downward. And also, they've got War Machine flamethrowers on the top of it with their almighty fists.
I was going to say, they got the 80s beef almighty fist this year. Actually kind of matches the pseudo-80s look of the whole robot.
I don't know how well Tantrum is going to do this year. I think, though, that this will be the year that they finally prove to us that their crazy ideas are finally going to pay off. From what we've seen in the fight preview, we are seeing Tantrum do its thing, and who knows, they may surprise us a little this season, but Tantrum to me is always one of those bots like Mammoth, where it's something different, and it may not win a lot of fights, but my god, do I love to watch that little thing.
They're definitely in the habit of putting on the show, whether it was by losing the Tombstone, unfortunately, or all their fights last year. They put on a really good show the past couple of years, and I expect more of the same. Will he do better? Maybe a little bit. All I know is they're really going to put on a show, and they're going to dish out some moments.
Yeah, they do have a good shot. I know they did pretty decently at King of Bot, and I'm really liking the new design. It feels like a hybrid between the previous two designs, so hopefully it does well.
I hope it does well. It's a very small ambition. It's very small but subtle. And now we move on to a robot that is the opposite of everything subtle. The return of the King of Kinetic Energy. The biggest heel in all of BattleBots. It is the return of Ray Billings and Tombstone. I don't think we need to say anything about Tombstone. It's Tombstone. Like, it's gonna spin, it's gonna cut robots into bits, Ray's gonna cackle. It's all you need to say about Tombstone.
What I'm going to say is bad to the bone. And yeah, Tombstone, Final Four lock easily, all day, every day. I know, bold pick, right?
Easily. If not the Final Four, then close to it. Although with what it had to go through last year, I think its window of opportunity might be closing. But even if Ray underperforms this season, he's one of those builders who has nothing to prove.
You know what was weird? I thought about that when, months ago before the pandemic. But now with the field changes, I'm like, actually, Ray's back in the game. Suddenly, he's Like with Bite Force gone and in the reduced field and most of the newcomers being lifters and grabbers, I think Ray's definitely got a real good shot at backing up his 2016 performance.
Well, time will tell for this season. Also, I want to give a shout out to whoever that extra they got off the set of Mad Max is with their team this year.
Oh yeah, that's Roy. For like years, he's done like announcing at robot events. Like the first Motorama I ever went to, he was there. His gimmick is that he would wear like a full set of armor, and it looked awesome. And he's also a really funny guy. So yeah, and I love the outfit he has here. It looks really cool. It's like sort of feel like you hit the nail on the head with Tombstone, where he doesn't really have anything to prove. No matter how well he does, even if he loses early, he's still the bot that everyone's afraid of. Like, he doesn't need to prove anything. He's just going to go out there and wreck some bots.
And he's the one Roboteer social media loves to hate. And we wouldn't have it any other way. One last bit about Roy. I love that mask that he has.
Oh yeah, that looks really cool.
That is such a cool mask. Not my favorite mask I've seen, real or fictitious. My favorite mask will always be, and you can do a Google search for this, Google Gary Bromley goalie mask. That thing is horrifying.
Oh my god. I just looked it up. It's terrifying. I would not want to play hockey with that guy. Against that guy, at least.
Thanks.
But from the king of kinetic energy to boys who are trying to prove themselves as BattleBots royalty, it's Tracer. Cheers, love! The cavalry's here! Okay, got that one out of the way.
It looks really nice. I don't know how it's going to do. Obviously, if they utilize the multibot well and, like have it high center the opponent and then whack it with the spinner, I think it could surprise a few people.
It's all right, I guess. I think the name's better than the package. I don't know. It looks kind of mid-pack to me. Maybe they'll do them marginally better than the last great multibot. Last great in quotations, Gemini. But yeah, it's a mid-packer for sure.
I don't really see how this thing can win more than 2 fights other than luck, because you really have to be well coordinated to use a mini-bot.
No, that's really true. It definitely takes a lot of coordination.
Plus, the shape of it, while I give them kudos for originality, is rather odd. Because you've got a completely flat front with 2 little wedgelets underneath it with a rounded back. I don't even know how this thing is supposed to self-right.
It looks like a bit of a chungus, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's Tracer. I give them props for having a cool design, but in this field, I don't know. But one thing I do know is that I am very sorry for calling this thing a joke bot and saying that I didn't think it was going to do well, and boy did it surprise me. It's the return of Uppercut.
Welcome back, Uppercut.
I did not expect this thing to do well last year, and I am so glad that I was wrong. Alex Hattori, he's built himself a unorthodox beast of a machine. It's a 2-wheel drive vert spinner, but it is so precisely driven. And it's not even like it got lucky hits either. It hit its opponents in just the right place. The only thing that stopped it from doing better was Bite Force causing it to do the thing.
I was going to say, I think they underperformed pretty much solely due to Bite Force. And with Bite Force gone, I think they're going to flourish like weeds in old urban concrete sidewalk. Definitely top 8 material. For all I know and from what I've heard on social media, they're probably going to surprise people and sort of backdoor, quote unquote, their way into the Final Four.
I don't know how they're going to do. I was really impressed with their performance last year. I don't know. I mean, this is like now their second year with a heavyweight bot, to my knowledge. So they've definitely learned a lot, and I hope, do really well.
Yeah, I do too. I just worry that, like Black Dragon, they're going to pull them on soon, and because they finished in the top 16, they're going to have a bit of a tougher schedule, so this is the year they're going to have to prove themselves. And speaking of bots that I feel need to prove themselves, God bless them, Valkyrie.
Valkyrie. I like their aesthetic this year. It really looks like they went to the drawing board. They went back to the drawing board in terms of the aesthetics, and they really cleaned it up. And their new weapon, it looks beefy.
The way I described the aesthetic, like, it already looked like a stealth bomber beforehand, but with all the extra details and paint they added this year, and this is another 600 IQ Nate reference, it looks like a VF-17 nightmare from Macross 7. Which is one of the few good things about that show, because I found Macross 7 to be tedious, but that is neither here nor there. Valkyrie, it always seems like they're always one step away from being truly elite, but then something happens to them, either a bad draw, or they just get unlucky, or the judge's decision just doesn't go their way. I don't know, like, I'm tempted to put Valkyrie on the prove it list, and I don't want to do that, because I love just how Valkyrie looks, I love its undercutter, I've met Leanne and her team in person, they're great people, but I really feel that Valkyrie is a machine with something to prove going into this year.
I'm going to say put it on the prove it list, because that's more or less what I'm going to say. They're a great team. They can take some hit. They can really dish out some hits. But last year, they drew Will Bales, which pretty much derailed their chances at going far. And the year before that, they had a lot of reliability problems. Basically, opportunity door. It's open. They just got to sort their stuff out and walk through it. That's pretty much it.
No, as long as they work on their reliability issues, I think they can do well. I feel like worst case scenario for them, to be honest, is just being in the same position as they were last year. They were on the verge of making the top 16.
Hopefully they can take that next step, because 2 years in a row they've entered really good-looking bots, and for whatever reason, their luck just hasn't fallen in their favor. But hopefully the third time is the charm for them. And hopefully the first time is the charm for this next robot, a bot whose name is one of the biggest trolls in bot history. It's War Easy. Or is it War Easy Juarez?
Oh, it says in the interesting fact, War Easy. So yeah, the first time was right.
Okay.
Actually, it is Juarez. according to Brandon from The Big Deal, one of the team members' names is Juarez. So, canonically, it is Juarez. That said, it's also War Easy, but it's also Juarez.
Or as I have come to dub it, cherry-flavored Hypershock.
Why didn't you call it Snap-On Hypershock? Because it looks like something from a Snap-On Tools calendar.
It's decked out in Devil's colors, so props on the paint job.
I love the go-kart tires. Look to be ex-Hypershock units. I love that look, by the way. That's why I said Snap-On Tools calendar.
I really hope that we get to see War Easy versus Hypershock this season.
I kind of want them to be Hypershock's first fight. If that happened, that'd be the automatic. That'd probably be one of the best episodes of the season for me, right then and there.
Hey, any opportunity for Will Bales to be Will Bales is A-okay.
I'm interested to see how it does. I honestly don't know. If they have like interchangeable front ends, then I think that'll be that'll definitely help them out. My biggest worry is fighting like maybe like a horizontal, because it looks like the front armor, it doesn't really extend too far out. So one like glancing blow could just tear off the front tires, but we'll see what happens.
I feel its problems are going to be in reliability but construction, but we'll have to see how the cards play out. But one robot that is always reliable, always well-driven, and is always a favorite for the top 16, it is the return of the Vasquezes with Whiplash.
Welcome back, Whiplash, with their special Black Dragon wheels. By the way, are extremely expensive.
They're what, like $300 each or something like that, or more, I think?
More than
Oh,
that.
damn.
You have to get them custom made to your robot, and it takes a long time. And of course, that's not counting shipping from Brazil.
Is it just me, or does it look smaller than last year with a bigger disc?
I think so, because I think they may have changed out
Small.
may have switched materials on the frame. I might be correct, I'm not sure. Looks like they might have gone with a stronger frame, but I'm not sure.
It's slightly smaller. I can tell from the blade looks bigger, lifting arm looks bigger, front and rear. And I think the wheelbase is probably, this is just from what I can tell here, looks to be about 2 inches shorter. I mean, the width is still the same, but the wheelbase is 2 inches shorter.
You're quite approximate with your measurements, Justin.
Let's just say I have a way to get better measurements, but I can't say them here.
I don't think there's much we can say about Whiplash other than it's going to be well driven, it's going to do Whiplash things and give robots its signature spinning back fist, and hopefully it goes all the way.
I think it's going to do well. The only thing standing in its way are definitely like the meta robots, like Witch Doctor and Tombstone. But other than that, I don't really think there's much that can stand in its way of making at least the top 4.
Speaking of Witch Doctor, take it away, Nate.
And that brings us to the end, finally, to Witch Doctor. And I don't think there's really much we can say. It's almost the same design as last year, but it looks a lot more squat. The weapon is still sticking out. It's got that ribcage Shremek, and I love the little details on its skeletal cage this year. That neon green Kirby crackle it has on the ribcage.
I was going to say it doesn't look like they changed a lot, if anything, this year, which I think is overall a good thing because they had a really good setup last year to beat Bite Force. If it weren't for Bite Force and his Bite Force plot armor, quote unquote, I kind of wish Witch Doctor had won it last year, and I really, really, really hope they seal the deal this year. Granted, I think they're going to have to go through Tombstone, not Bite Force, to do it, but I really want them to seal the deal this year.
Although Sam Elliott pointed something out in his preview, and that is the curse of second place. With the exception of Tombstone, every robot that has come second in BattleBots has struggled the following season.
I disagree that it's a curse. Like, Bombshell and Minotaur both went through, like, huge redesigns, especially Bombshell, because it was, like, a completely different bot, but Minotaur was at least somewhat similar to its predecessor. But if you look at Witch Doctor, both versions of Witch Doctor side by side, they're mostly identical, so it's less a complete rebuild and more just a refinement on the previous design. So as long as they've worked out some of those reliability gremlins, I think they're honestly my pick to win.
Me too. If you're going to win, you better do it now.
It's either going to be them or Tombstone. Calling it now.
I have my own picks for the Final Four, but to do that would take another hour, and we are already 3 hours into the recording. But with Witch Doctor, we are done with the field this year. Thank goodness. Even without the international entries and some teams not returning, I think this is going to be a very interesting field. We've said that it's a weaker field without certain robots, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad field. There's a lot of interesting designs and some interesting teams on display this year. And I think the combination of newcomers and returning veterans, I think this is a wide open field for the Giant Nut. But if you had to pick your Final Four on the spot, who you got?
Let's see. Witch Doctor, Tombstone, Whiplash, Hypershock.
Other Nate?
Those were mine, but I think I might swap out Hypershock for either Lockjaw or Sawblaze.
Mine looks like this. Witch Doctor, Lockjaw, Whiplash, and Sawblaze. But with all the bots this year, I feel that this is a season where anything can happen, and I think we're going to see a lot of really big upsets. who knows, maybe some bots that were in the Final Four last year may not even make it past the second round.
I do love how we all got Witch Doctor and Whiplash into the Final Four.
Well, the reason I picked all three is because Don Hudson, Matt Vasquez, and Mike Galately are all great drivers, and that to me is the deciding factor in what gets a bot to the Final Four, and that's great driving.
Oh, absolutely. It's no matter how good your bot is, it's going to come down to the driving.
True. Good driving does tend to win fights in BattleBots.
Do we have any other thoughts on the field this year before other than mine?
You got a colorful, diverse, storied field for sure. Got a lot of hometown heroes, some startup teams looking to establish themselves, some last-minute entries, the most amount of art bots since, I think, 2016 or something like that. And we got a pretty decent amount of energy. But also, while there is an air of unpredictability, as is the case for literally everything these days, there's also sort of a defense of the BattleBots ethos. BattleBots has that ethos, that energy, that laser focus. And there's both been a concerted assault on that compared to years past, ironically from different sources, in Paul Ventimiglia not being there, and you got a bunch of new startup teams. And you sort of have the old guard there, Tombstone, Witch Doctor, even Sal and Hypershock, sort of showing the world that, hey, you still got to go through us to actually make a name out here. And despite the reduced field, we're going to be big on energy, that's for sure.
Without question, I'm having some people over, mostly neighbors, to watch the show, because I have shown BattleBots to my parents' friends, who are all much, much older than I am, and they get a kick out of BattleBots. I feel BattleBots is a TV show that can appeal to anyone. You know, whether you're young or old, blue collar or white collar. I wouldn't even call it trash TV. Like, there's a lot of brains on this show. Like, it takes a lot to figure out just the meta and what weapon works best for non-roboteers. Although I will say this, it's always entertaining talking to people who know nothing about robot combat, asking what weapons they'd put on their robot, only to have them put something illegal as their weapon.
I love me some chainsaws and some 50 cals.
My neighbor, he said that he wants like a high energy laser on his robot, but I told him you have to limit it to 5 megawatts.
Someone around me, I think it was one of the, shall we say, I mean it's in the nicest way possible, rednecks that I tend to hang out with. That's where I got the 50 cal suggestion from. Someone else said it said a legitimo, like a chainsaw or something like that.
Well, chainsaws certainly were an effective weapon in 1995.
Yeah, they were cool 20 years ago.
But my favorite suggestion for a bot came from one of my coworkers. He recognized my Monsoon t-shirt at work. And he said, "Hey Nate, is that a shirt for BattleBots?" And I told him, yeah, they have a new season on Discovery and it's great. And he said, you know, if I was to build a robot, I would just have like this big metal ball that had a single punching spike that would come out of it to help it move around and to punch its opponents. And you know, I give him credit for at least suggesting a design concept that is within the rules of BattleBots. But that thing's just gonna get wrecked in today's mecha.
Meta, you mean, but mecha. Well, mecha is in Motorama, which is the holy mecha of robot combat. I don't know, that was completely random, I'm sorry.
No, you're right.
I'm saying BattleBots are like the, you can bleep this out, Super Bowl or the Daytona 500 of the sport, I'd say. Because it kind of feels that way whenever I bring it up to people who don't watch the show.
It's the Masters, the Stanley Cup playoffs, the Daytona 500, and the big game all rolled into one.
That's about how I describe it.
Well, I think that's going to do it. 2020 has been a chaotic year, and the 2020 season of BattleBots is looking to be no exception to that rule, because by golly, this season is gonna be crazy. I really hope that it's competitive, I really hope that there's tons of destruction, and I hope there's some really, really good fights. Fights that go the distance, fights that come down to the wire, fights that end up in really close judges' decision, and fights where we get to see all the robots do what they were designed to do. And with that, we will end this exhausting season preview. So until then, this is Otaku Nate.
This is Justin Young. Keep on rocking in the free world, everybody.
And I'm Nate Franklin.
And we're signing off and saying, the box is locked, the lights are on, it's robot fighting time!